thanks for joining me, Daz. It's I'm actually really excited to have this conversation. Like we've known each other for quite a long time now, isn't it? It's about 10 years, 10, 12 years.
I think it's closer to 15. It's ages now.
Is it? No way, no way. Yeah. So Daz and I met when we were both working at a school in Switzerland, and yeah, I think we had some pretty amazing adventures. I think the first time we met was on a multi-pitch rock climb.
It was, yeah, we were climbing the Miroir de Argentine, and there was the three of us, and basically you were the third rope, so you stared at my bum for literally 3 or 4 hours, which was brilliant.
Yeah, apart from when I got to lead, I got to escape away from having
exactly
right
from bum. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a great introduction. But I think that's kind of like sums up our friendship, I suppose.
Pretty much, yeah. Silly adventures as often as possible. But yeah, we didn't see each other for a long time, about 10 years, eh?
No, and it's like, it's been amazing.
Doing awesome things.
Yeah. Well, I think it's been amazing, isn't it? It's like, there are certain people in life that, you might not see them for years and years, and then you connect and sort of get back together again. It's like no time's passed at all. And I always feel that with you. But however, like in the time since I last saw you, like you have had the most incredible adventure, and that's what we're here to talk about today. Is your incredible adventure where you spent, was it 6 years sailing around the world?
In total, it was 6 years. Yeah, the actual full circumnavigation was about 27 months, but I originally had my own boat to start with, and then lost my boat, and then sailed other people's boats. So it was a really long, drawn out process, but it was pretty incredible. Incredible sailing around the world. So many beautiful places to see, incredible people to meet. Yeah, once in a lifetime opportunity, really.
Awesome. Yeah, well, let's start at the beginning of your trip. So what was this trip all about?
Well, I mean, I'm an avid reader, and I've been reading books since I was about 5, and always into adventure books, and always remember reading the sort of sailing adventure books, and just thought that's the only real echelon of freedom left, like to actually just go and be completely self-sufficient and explore the world and be immersed in nature. So it's sort of been a dream of mine for a long time. Then had a very good friend in the UK who did his yacht master course, and then decided, yeah, we would go and sail the world together. So over a long protracted period, saving money, etc., we bought a boat together, and then we set off, starting in Greece, and then spent about 18 months in the Mediterranean learning our boat before disaster struck.
Yeah, because this disaster struck quite early on in your trip, wasn't it? Because you'd had this incredible plan to circumnavigate the world in this boat that you bought, and when disaster struck, it was quite early on in your trip, wasn't it?
Well, it was sort of 18 months in. My mate had since departed. He'd run out of money and didn't really want to carry on sailing. So I was solo sailing, and I stopped in a little bay called Sagres in Portugal, or a little bay called Balearia. And yeah, it was the last stop on mainland Europe before I was going to solo across the Atlantic. And the mooring buoy snapped. So my boat was washed up on the beach and destroyed in 2 days. So sort of 18 months of work just disappeared almost overnight, which was heartbreaking. But one of these things, due to that happening, I had these other experiences in other boats and met lots of other people. So you just have to sort of roll with the punches, really.
But at the time, because so you've since bought out a trilogy. Trivia books here, but it's a trilogy.
There's the first one.
Missing one. Is The World's My Oyster, which you can find on Amazon, and there'll be links to it below. But in your book, you describe quite clearly like the heartbreak that happened when you lost your boat, because this was basically your dreams being smashed up, that you were watching being smashed up on the shore. And yeah, I mean, the way that you describe it in the book, I mean, if you can like summarize that for us.
Well, it was 10 years of work really to get to that point where I had the skill set, I had the money, I had a boat, and yeah, just it went from being like El Capitan in this port where everyone's like, Captain, how you doing? Like exactly where I wanted to be, to everything being gone. Everything that I owned was on the boat. Just heartbreaking to see the 2 tides come in a day and pound your boat, pulling things out of the boat. You're like, oh my God, everything is destroyed. All my books, all the electronics, everything. And then I had to spend about 2 weeks on the beach getting stuff off the boat, whilst people at night would break on and try and steal stuff. And it was just a really, really horrendous experience. And going from being like life is perfect to like my passport's been confiscated by the maritime police because they will not let me leave the country until this wreck is sorted. So yeah, it wasn't a great time.
No. And I mean, that's crazy, isn't it? Having your passport taken from you. I've had this happen to me a couple of times, and it's actually quite terrifying, isn't it? Because it leaves you feeling incredibly vulnerable, and also very insignificant as well. I mean, I take it, obviously, you managed to get it back eventually.
Well, fortunately, I had insurance. So I was insured, literally, it was the last place I was insured because they wouldn't insure me for solo sailing across the Atlantic. So fortunately, after about 2 weeks, the insurance company paid out or said that they would pay out. So that took a huge weight off my shoulders because it cost something like 20,000 euros to get the wreckage off the beach. And I didn't have that sort of money. I think I had about £5,000 left in the bank, which was enough money to get all my victuals and get over to the Caribbean. And then I'd have to work over there for probably a season and get enough money to keep going and going and going. So yeah, the sort of financial insecurity, the emotion of actually losing everything that I've ever really owned, it was a pretty tough 2 weeks.
Yeah, I can imagine. And this is what I love so much about you. I think you're just incredible, is that you experience these setbacks and your life hasn't been easy, like even outside of this trip as well. But it's like you experience these setbacks, but they only affect you for like a very short period of time, and then you're kind of catapulted into the next adventure. And it all seems down to the mindset. I mean, how do you stay positive in a situation like that? How do you then decide, go from that point of having just lost everything, all your dreams on that beach, to then actually kind of carrying on with your adventure?
It was a very poignant moment when I was about 18. My father was very ill and I'd left South Africa and moved to England. And one day I was just walking up the street and I just was like, I'm in such a foul mood, but there's nothing I can do about this. Like, it's completely out of my control. So why am I feeling so bad about this all the time? And I just thought, if things are out of your control, then they're out of your control. Just work with the stuff that you can control and let everything else work itself out. So after sort of 2 days, I cried myself to sleep on the beach, drunk the last half bottle of unsmashed whiskey that I had. And then I woke up in the morning and that was it. She was no longer my boat. She was just a hull. She was just something that I had to deal with. And I moved on. I kind of tried to cut the emotion away from like, okay, put it in a box. It's done now. Now I need to move on to the next chapter and get on with it, basically. So it was, yeah, really hot, emotional for about 48 hours. And then it was like, time to move on.
Yeah. And where did you go next? I mean, where do you go from that point?
I couldn't really face, I mean, I got the insurance payout, so I could have bought another boat, but I just couldn't face being on the ocean again for a while. So I then went to Australia, New Zealand for 6 months. I bought a camper van and I did like a 5-month road trip around New Zealand just to sort of like clear my head and just reappraise and see where I wanted to go next. But on that trip, in my camper van, perfect waves, just like, I really, really want to sail. Like, I promised myself that I was going to sail around the world. And if I don't do it, I'll always regret it. I'll look at it in the mirror when I'm 70 or 80 and go, you had this dream, why didn't you follow it? So I sort of made the decision there. All right, we've got to crack on. Now we need to look at a different avenue. So instead of owning my own boat, which is incredible and the freedom is phenomenal, but it's quite expensive. You've got, everything is about 5 times more expensive than you'd imagine. And I've been given some advice on my second transatlantic trip. And this guy was like, don't own your own boat, just sail other people's. It's way cheaper. And I remember that coming back to me and going, this is a good idea. So yeah, then I looked into the possibility of crewing for other people. And that's how I did my full world trip on 4 different yachts.
Yeah, because you've, as part of the journey, it's like you've kind of jumped from boat to boat and different people and things. And I mean, you must have met like such an array of people and characters along the way. And I've been really enjoying following your social media, because it's like you post your little stories every day of like, of your adventures on that trip, and like some of the characters that you met are just absolutely fascinating, and some of them are really dangerous as well.
Oh well, you say all the gear and no idea. That's happened to me a couple of times. But yeah, the divergent characters you meet. Met one narcoleptic solo sailor when we were in Greece. So basically you had to take like hardcore, almost speed basically, and he'd stay awake for 3 days and sail to another place, crash into the dock more or less. The day we met him, he crashed into the dock, fell asleep for 24 hours. We thought he was dead, and then came and he was like, hello guys. And then we spent a week with him. Another guy who lived in a horse box, who was a famous, really famous artist, and he'd just walk up and down the beach playing exactly the same song on a saxophone and feeding all the stray cats. So yeah, there's this massive disparity of characters that you meet. But in the sailing world, generally people with boats have been pretty successful in their business endeavors because they've had to earn a fair amount of money to buy boats. So yeah, on the world trip, met everyone from CEOs of oil and gas companies to hedge fund managers to the last boat that I sailed on, he had a family business for glue, and they had glue companies in 5 countries all over the world. So yeah, very, very, very cool and interesting because every day is different.